Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Right Media Group. Today, we've got Jaime Schwarz, founder of Brand Therapy, and someone who's literally created a discipline called company betterment. Jamie got diagnosed with ADHD at 45, launched 10 startups, and just wrote a book by talking to AI whilst driving. If you ever wondered what happens when psychology meets branding, meets chaos theory, you're about to find out. Jamie, I'm excited to have you on the show.
I'm excited to be here, and thank you so much for adding the chaos theory part to that. I think it'll ground everybody in whatever
Yeah.
they're about to experience.
I'm looking forward to a conversation, Jamie. First things first, you mentioned you got diagnosed with ADHD at 45. So, what did that diagnosis explain about your entire career that suddenly made sense to you?
Going back to high school, it made sense in terms of being somebody who would get a D as easily as an A plus.
Mm.
I was a know-it-all and built my identity around that a lot, and would be a productive procrastinator. In college, I remember reading 13 books about things I was interested in during finals, so I wouldn't have to work on finals and still fit that all in at the same time. And I didn't think anything of it. I wasn't putting pieces together in any way, shape, or form. And also, this was the 90s. By the time I was in advertising as a copywriter, which is a space that's chaotic by nature and art focused and creative leads the way. And you're not working on one client at a time. You're working on 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 clients at a time. It was definitely a place where, it was good that I had the messy desk. It was good that I had 40 tabs open on my screen. It was good that I was able to use all the different things across all the different industries and media that I had learned for cat food or rental cars or B2B enterprise software. It's just great to have as many dots as possible if you're a dot connector. So I always just treated it as somebody that was well disposed to being an agency creative.
It's funny because there is a percentage of people, and they're not afraid to hide that they have ADHD. And they said agency life, like founding an agency, is the best thing they could ever do. Because finally, nobody's telling them what to do. Like, oh, you're getting 1 hour to work on this client. You've got as much time as you want to have until you figure it out, until your brain's calm.
That's not how my brain operates. And when I formed an agency, it was the beginning of the end of realizing I was not realizing I was on a spectrum. I want to be very clear about how ADHD is a spectrum philosophy, because I don't even know, how we can dive into the mind on this kind of thing. So I can only speak from my own experience
Of course, yeah.
and recognize alignment where there's alignment in others, and recognize that I'm probably on the high functioning side of this kind of stuff. And what works for me may not work for everybody else, but if people find some similarities in here, I hope it's helpful. So when I started my first agency, it's called Pro for Bono, low cost marketing in return for high return joint venture work with the client. So it was focused on nonprofits, and it was a 2017 launch because everybody was doing something when Trump first got elected to say, what can we build? And I was focused on political nonprofits and just doing nonprofit focused work that would teach the nonprofit to be more, company betterment, to be more self-reliant, create its own lines of revenues. Doesn't matter if you're a nonprofit, you can still make a profit. You just have to put it back into your company. So that's so much better than being reliant on your donors, which is an up and down kind of thing and really feeds you into a system you are trying to break. But when I did that, it was great in the beginning, as you said. Oh my God, I'm choosing the clients. I'm choosing what I want to work with. The structure is what makes somebody like myself able to use the powers that ADHD can provide. If you don't have the guardrails, if you don't have the impetus, if you don't have somebody breathing down your neck saying, this is due in 30 minutes, then you can't take advantage of the adrenaline and dopamine rush. You can't build fog from fog. Like, you can't build something from fog. You need strategy, you need directive. I had an art director partner, a creative director, strategist, account people, traffic, like everybody was there in service of the job. And that allowed me in that space in the agency to be the chaotic one.
Mm-hmm.
So chaos could be complementary to the necessary structure. When I started running Pro for Bono, that fell apart in seconds because all of it's about executive function.
Wow.
That's a very big part of the struggle with ADHD is executive function. When you're in charge, man, if you don't have your structure down, if you don't have your rails down, that's a very hard thing to win at.
I'm very glad you brought that other side and were really sort of honest and open about it because I personally haven't experienced anything like this. I just go off from the conversation I have and their own experiences. And it's interesting you brought that other side of the negatives as well as it might have. But end of the day, at least now you know what you're dealing with by being diagnosed, so you can take the correct steps.
I'm even going to question correct. It's the blind leading the blind. It's because it's a spectrum. It's so different for everybody. One person's perfect fit medication wise may be not the right thing for somebody else. And so I've gone through multiple medications, multiple calendars, and a lot of AI infrastructure, a lot of patience with my family.
Mm.
The commonality I do see is you have to keep trying until you find something that works for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very rare that it'll be the same thing as anybody else. I have friends with ADHD, and it's just not the
Yeah,
same.
yeah, because there's so many different types you can have from the conversation that I hear. So it depends, obviously, how severe it is for you as well. And you said for you, it's not too bad.
Are you on the autistic side versus the OCD side? Are you
Oh, okay, yeah.
motivated internally or externally? Are you a TMI person or are you masking? Like, those are all psychology, and like the brain is so much. And this is just yet another layer. And we
Yeah.
are all, regardless of diagnosis, it's easy to say we are all a collection of spectrums.
Love how you put that. Talking about your agency, brand therapy. I mean, you created, I think you had a rebranding from Pro for Bono, I think it was,
Yeah.
and then into brand therapy. Can you walk me through the conversation you had with one of the clients where you told me in a previous call, they said, this feels like therapy. Is that what gave you the initial spark of an idea to rebrand?
I'd actually like to take the moment here to say that any one spark that I ever have is never doing justice to the unconscious and smaller sparks that surround it.
Mm.
I I I think there are turning points. I think there are fulcrums, and I think there are very important moments that change the game. And there's before and after. But there was a lot building towards that kind of moment where I had already recognized my agency wasn't structurally working well. The benefit I was really getting out of having my own agency was being in front of clients for the first time, one on one, with nobody in between. And in an agency, that 6 degrees of separation is, I don't know, I think it's just the death knell of creativity in and of itself. It's too many cooks in the kitchen, it's too many games of telephone. But when you're really getting to the why with the person in charge of the why, I was 2 hours deep into that conversation before the client said, "This feels like therapy." And, and that's also not taking into account I was gonna be a clinical psychologist like my father before me when I went to college. So there was a lot leaning into
Wow.
the way I thought, the way I did things already. So when he said that, and then I countered with, "But it's not therapy for you, it's therapy for your brand. What the hell is brand therapy?" And the light bulb going off at that moment, it was a very pregnant moment leading to that.
I'm wondering, how was it different from like normal consulting that led to the client saying, this feels like therapy? Like, do you have a structure or steps that you take in these sort of conversations?
It was part of an evolution in how I was working with people at the time because I was adding so many different skills. When you're concentrating as a copywriter in an agency, you're not just a creative, you're super niched down
Mm.
to not doing a lot of things. And when you're running an agency, you're doing all of it at once. So all of a sudden, well, before I left agency world, I really put on a strategist hat and even considered myself more of a strategist than a creative by the time I left agency world. And so they really became intrinsic to me over time, and as did product development. So those three things were really married into my North Star as I was finding my way into brand therapy. So that when this container of a title came around, allowing it to become a discipline that was really focused on, well, what's the North Star? It's the power of the brand. It's everything I've learned, but in service of something larger than a met KPI on a creative execution. What does the brand truly need? It was living through too many conversations with people inside the company that weren't being stewards of their own mission, vision, and values. They were thinking too egocentrically, which is human nature. And what if the brand could speak for itself? That's the first place my head went after I said, what the hell is brand therapy? So I wasn't thinking about it that way beforehand. However, one of the other things I was doing was working on bots. I have an article in Adweek on the future of commerce being conversational in 2016. Being a near futurist is a messy headspace to be in, but there's an awful lot of just like, okay, these things are happening. These things are basal. They might be seeds to something, and then always being top of mind as new things emerge. So you can say, are things coming together? Are there convergences happening that will create new emergences? And that convergence emergence flow also became apparent to me during this time. So brand therapy was an excuse to, as my tagline is, let the brand speak for itself, which was on a psychological level, because it's pre-AI, the most interesting thing to me about this. What if the way I put it to my clients was, when you run with scissors, you can hear your mom telling you to stop in the back of your head. Well, when you're running a company, you're running with scissors all the time. So
Mm,
whose voice should you hear? And
mm.
because that voice was the brand, and that was an obvious thing, that was just the conversation I had with myself, that was the thing that said, I have a strong foundation here to build on top of.
Also on your profile on your LinkedIn, you talk a lot about AI, and people are using AI for branding. And I'm pretty sure you clarified that's when the brand therapy comes in because you need to come and put out the fires pretty much because of all the damage that AI has done to the brand.
Yeah, what happens when a brand becomes self-aware? It needs
Mm,
therapy. And I mean self-aware in a very performative sense, but I knew this was coming. I knew the whole thing was brands would speak for themselves. It's just that, how it hits, you never know.
mhm,
And when it hits, you never know how society's going to react. And so when we started to get things like a good example was on a purely functional level, a Canadian airline with the AI offering bereavement discount to a customer. And then the customer's like, thanks, took it. And then the airline said, wait, we don't have that. That was hallucinated by the AI. A judge then said, your AI is a
mm,
representative of you. Anything it generates is official. Ergo, you owe it to the customer. And what that really helped me understand was I had a new foundation to rely on when it came to what we were living through with AI and hallucinations, which is the buck stops at the human.
mhm.
There's still a level of responsibility that you have to have a steward in charge of. And because you do, that's a lot of back and forth between a brand steward and a brand AI working with each other to make sure that the brand steward is constantly evolving the AI to stay on brand as the brand is doing the scaled work of what it already is able to scale across brand for everybody else.
That's sort of being smart about utilizing AI. And it's like a cautious scaling up rather than just,
Mm.
here's an AI, we're going to replace everything now with it, which I see there were some companies, especially in the USA, doing that. And they did end up going down a really bad road where they end up burning a lot of money as well.
There's a lot of burnt money. There's a lot of experiments. I do see it a lot of it as failing forward. Think of all of the companies that went bankrupt building the fiber optic networks that we stand on top of in the late
Mm,
1990s, early 2000s. Quest is just gone. And from that benefit came broadband for everybody that,
mhm,
I don't expect the companies in their current form to remain the way they are. But I do expect that we're not going to tear down all of the already built server farms.
mhm,
And
mhm.
think of how many server farms have been repurposed from Bitcoin mining to AI in the past 5 years.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
should be
that's a
having a
lot.
conversation with my business partner about that. He's absolutely crazy about crypto. Wherever he can.
Happy to. It's the necessary pillar of Web3, but yeah, it's just another pillar. There's so many.
So, talking a little bit about your current clients and your own branding for your own agency. So, particularly with podcasts, I've never been a guest on some of them, but you mentioned last year you did over 20 podcasts where you was a guest. So, I'm wondering if there is some clients that actually come through podcasts because I know a few marketing agencies they are trying to get themselves out there for their branding. What sort of benefits are you seeing from the podcast that you get on as guests, particularly?
I mean, it honestly depends on what your specific mission is. There's so many
Mm-hmm.
different ways to take advantage of podcasting. I think it is extremely limiting if somebody comes in saying this is a part of a funnel and it's meant to acquire new business, because funnels are way more complicated and messy and layered and in flux than just being on a bunch of podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the harder things to get across to a client or anybody else is when you're building a campaign, you're building an ecosystem. So any one campaign, any one event, any one execution, any one ad, any one podcast, any one piece of media, any content, they don't do much on their own. It's the ecosystem that is forever, is on a flywheel of perpetual motion that exists because of the constant churn of people into the system and your interaction with them down the system, or an automated interaction to a point that's for. And I think that a lot of people get really disappointed in the promised returns of an ecosystem off of the efforts of putting out a few pieces of content.
Yeah, I love the way you explained it. It's like it doesn't work on its own. It's got to have this whole ecosystem and it sort of bounces off from one another. So let's say, for
Mhm.
example, somebody's seen you on a podcast as a guest, but then they go to your website and your website's, sorry, crap. I mean, that's going to be the end of that line. And let's say your website was good. They go to your website, they check out your social as well. And it's all them touch points that that potential client has with you, that there's more of a chance they end up actually being your client or getting on a conversation with you.
Yeah, it's a touch point is a good thing to base this all on. How many touch points do you have? This is how real you are, how present you are.
Hmm.
If you're not giving those touch points and the on brand context that they need to see, then your ecosystem isn't in motion, is not self perpetuating.
Yeah. But I mean, from my personal experience, we started a podcast back in August of last year. And before, when I typed in my name or my business name, limited amount of things came out. Now it's boom, 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 one podcast, another podcast talking about
Uh-huh.
this, and that for
Uh-huh.
marketing agencies. And it's like,
Uh-huh.
wow. Do you get the same sense being as a guest on other podcasts too?
Sure. So I'd say like one of the huge benefits that you get as a host is we live in a world now where the more content you have, the more touch points you'll
Mm.
have because of the
Yeah.
curation of search and AI. So any content is good content on that level. Presence matters so much, especially if you're starting from whatever zero means to you. So no matter what, I would recommend that for people if they don't have a presence. That a pillar has a lot of benefits. A podcast isn't going to do much. Being a guest on a few podcasts isn't going to do much. Having your owned, earned, and paid media, your podcast is owned media that
Hmm.
is aligned with a lot of earned media. So it's a very strong point. For me, it's just earned media. It's not owned. And it's more of a spray and pray approach as a guest versus as a host where you are using the laws of attraction
Hmm.
to constantly bring people to a home, a base that has a lot of content around it. But my purposes were different. My purpose was being on there because I had started Marked. I was looking for language. I wanted to practice. I wanted to
Hmm.
say the same things again and again. So I was using it that way. But I also knew I was building a content farm of what I was talking about. So it wasn't just me finding my words while podcasting. It was me recording myself because I had to. My poor little ADHD brain that won't write the story down now has myself talking 20 times, 20 different people for 20 hours that I could then feed into an LLM and then talk with for myself while
Oh,
driving. And that's
wow,
what led
that's
to the book.
smart. I've never seen anyone utilize it like that. That's really, really interesting. Actually, we created something very similar in our agent just very recently. We've had maybe 50, 60 conversations, and it's like you gather all that wisdom and then you put it into an LLM and like now, okay, well, let's talk about this topic, sort of break it down for me because I mean, I've absorbed so much information, there's only so much I can retain. I'm not as good as an LLM, unfortunately.
That's why it's so complimentary to us and why
Mm.
people are so scared about something that's so helpful, which
Mm.
is you to the power of AI, not AI and maybe you can come along or not.
Yeah. Jamie, what currently is working best in your agency to get new business?
Well, I've just fallen down the rabbit hole of Opus 4.6 and Cowork on
Ooh.
Claude. So it's a topical thing. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be saying this a couple weeks ago, and I probably won't be saying it a month from now. But
Yeah.
right now, I'm doing an awful lot of orchestration, a lot of learning how to have a master agent control a lot of other agents and how to glue different AI properties together. Because one of the things that's good about AI is if you give it a really special job, it'll do it very well. And so companies have formed around very specific niches and done them very, very well. However, that's the only thing they do. But if you put a bunch of them together with an N or Zapier or whatever and have an AI that's taking you along for the ride, there's an awful lot that I'll never have to learn because AI is now doing it for me, which means I'm now doing a lot of work that I would have had to have farmed out to do. So right now one of the first things I did was create an automated CRM where if anybody writes an email to me where they're mentioning about getting together, like they want to schedule a meeting, the email will automatically respond with, if you'd like to schedule a meeting, here's the link to do so before I do anything. And that's like a
Imagine it's
scale
with a
anticipation.
person you don't want to go to.
It's not that. It's where are my bottlenecks? And
Yeah,
one of
no,
my
that's great. That's
bottlenecks
a great
is
explanation there, Jamie. I
we all
adore
get
that
lost
you
in our emails.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because sometimes it can be a lot as well, especially if you've got team and clients and you're otherwise doing such manual task. And I agree, having something like an SDR, it does ease off the load.
It does, it does. And I'm trying to find some limits too. Like I'm building out a blockchain with Cowork because now because Claude can write Solidity. I mean, what? That's crazy.
Blockchains, well, within crypto or
Yeah,
I
but
need
my
to
own
send my
chain.
business partner your way. Like I said, he's a fanatic for crypto, so he'd
Well, but
love
think
to.
about that for a second. Like I'm specifically working on an Ethereum layer 2, which
Hmm.
means it's one of those spaces where it's like the easiest way to build is take a cloned layer 2 and add it onto Ethereum, especially now that Ethereum just went through a very big fork that Vitalik changed. So gas is way down and there's a lot more the layer 1 can do. What can we do with a layer 2 now in this space? And all of these ERC standards, so many things. Not to get down the woods there, but this technology and that technology advancing at the same time. That's
Hmm.
another example of convergence. So it's the same thing as saying, like, look, Web 2 wasn't Web 2. It was the fact that we had mobile technology, broadband technology, social media, and the power of the algorithm at the same time. That's why Web 2 exists. Web 3 has been coming together because immersive and AI and blockchain are coming together in different ways that are allowing for a different kind of convergence, ergo, a new kind of emergence. So, what kind of world do you want to live in? Sorry, what kind of world did that emergence create, and how do you want to live in it? And it's just
Hmm.
recognizing what world you live in right now. My
Yeah.
favorite my favorite piece of advice I've been giving this week, in other words, the thing I've been saying that most people have been really happy to hear, is the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. Not my quote. But if that's true, and this is where I add to it, then go to that future and then make the money on bringing everybody else to it. If you're in that moment right now of massive convergence emergence, then be the empathetic person who says to everybody else, hey, I know you're having trouble getting there. I've already done it. I've come back for you. Let's go together. Empathy isn't, I know your struggle. It's, I know your struggle and I'm going to go through it with you.
Are you building another business or
I
having
have
another
3.
startup?
Yeah. So Mark DJ, I've been building. Okay. So I filed the world's first NFT patent in 2017 on a
Oh,
hunch. We'll call it that.
uh-huh.
Um, and when it was granted in 2022, because I was not touching it with a 10-foot pole till it was granted, because I'm not Nike or Apple or whatever. It's me. I started to try to figure out what I could do with it, because what I did see coming down the road was if we're having immersive and we've had this problem of Web 2 destroying ownership
Hmm.
through no fault of any one person. Like, I don't blame the guy who invented the like button at his moment of inventing it. And I applaud him for saying, I wish I never invented it. Like all the different things that have happened consequentially, like the system brings a system brings a system. There's a gravity there. But within all of that space, we watched ourselves go from a static read only to a read write internet. And with a read write internet and content became live, it became centralized and structured. And the new Google search became algorithms in the feed. And that led to, what do we do with this data? Advertising being the main source. And because advertising is the pillar, it led to the attention economy. So we saturated ourselves with our first screens. We've now saturated ourselves with our second screens. We're now talking about a more than 2-screen world that we're living in. We're past super saturation. So we are in the surveillance economy because we've moved from the algorithm to the For You page, where we don't get served what they think we want. We don't choose anymore. It's not our feed. We're jumping in on a feed they think we like. That's their internet that we get to participate in. So now we have, with read write and the attention surveillance economy, we're adding own. Great book I recommend it, Read Write Own, kind of describing Web3 and how blockchain is so fundamental to us having ownership back. That's what I'm doing with Marked. That's what I'm doing with the patent. If we have decentralized digital objects, we now have ownable digital objects. And because we have ownable digital objects, I don't have to give my value of my own IP away to a centralized platform to be able to make money off of it. We needed centralized social media to get to this point, but we need blockchain and, to a large extent, AI to get out of what we've drawn ourselves into.
Yeah. I mean, we're sort of diving a little bit off topic here, but it's such an exciting thing to be talking about because you're sort of being taken advantage of when you see on social media when a father wants to take 10,000 out from his saving account because he wants to get his son a motorbike, and he's being asked for proof that he wants to buy the motorbike even though it's his money. So it's just owning back that privacy, that it's yours, because now it doesn't feel like it.
Well, it's that we rely on those centralized platforms to prove our identity, and our identity needs to be intrinsic to us. And I don't even mean just us. I mean the objects around us too, because the digital world allowed for a copy and paste world. Counterfeit for all of humanity was, can I tell this is a Gucci purse or not? Let me examine it, right? Is this a fake Mona Lisa, right? You examine it. In a digital world, it doesn't exist. It's copy and paste. So when NFTs came along and actually gave us receipts, the use of a receipt by itself, that's not an economy, but the concept of the receipt and allowing for ownership of a digital good allows for provenance to be in both digital and physical goods. All physical goods can be digital now. So we have here's a record. There's an NFC chip in here. So I tap that and it takes me from the physical record to the digital versions of it. And that's what I've been building within this space. So based on everything I was talking about philosophically, I've built out the idea of the IP economy, which means we have a service economy, we have an industrial economy, we have an agricultural economy. The IP economy is taking the data of the internet economy, that we have the data economy, the information economy, and the insights, and turning them into a scaled intelligence. When intelligence is with AI is what's going down to zero right now. What does that leave for emergence too? As long as we own our own IP, which we technically do, but we keep signing it away to centralized platforms. But when we own it, then our proof is with us, our IP is with us. We have the say in terms of all of a sudden being able to trade on our IP. We've always had this with patents, trademarks, things like that, but those are sledgehammers. We need the dollars and cents. And that's where flash licensing, blockchain, an IP ID comes from. Like what Sam Altman's doing with the world face thing where he's scanning your face. We're creating IP IDs. Proof of self that is a wallet for everything that is included in our self. Because I am not just my body. I am the right to my name and my ideas. That's me too.
That's pretty cool.
And, well,
And if people wanted to find out more, are you promoting anywhere of this, crypto? Is it like a hobby, or are you actually promoting it somewhere out there where people
Yeah.
can connect with you if they're
Uh,
interested in that topic?
I wrote the book, The IP Economy, and gave
Mhm.
it a home at theipeconomy.com. And the music company Marked, mrkd.dj, is still in formation, but we have a great 8-person team. The patents are giving us a very strong moat. We have Keith Shockley from Public Enemy as our first creative director, founding creative director. We have an amazing partner, DigiRamp, who's doing the automated licensing. We're taking the concept of the IP economy and applying it to the most rights managed industry there is, music, and most complicated, and creating nested IP master formats that automatically and digitally take care of the rights and the royalties and the clearance of the music so the music can play and promote and sell itself.
Wow.
And the IP I add to it. So if I bought album 37 of 250 from directly from the artist, and I've got a first edition, I could sell 250 second editions from my first edition to other people with an affiliate fee.
Uh-huh.
That's fan distribution. But also, whenever they sell, there's money going directly back to all the different artists that were sampled. Automatic royalty distribution per purchase because everything's on chain, everything's on a lineage. And that also means I can sample music. And whenever that music I've sampled is part of something, like I didn't have to clear. It's built into the song that says, hey, you want to use me? Here's the contract that's built into the sample you're taking. And when you make
Mm.
your music, it'll automatically make sure that my cut's included
This
and that
sounds
your
like
rights
the
are cleared.
future for me. It's just like a topic I've never come across, but you're saying this is happening now.
The future is here. It's just not evenly distributed yet.
Again, that same line. Moving back to your agency, you said something very interesting in our other chat. You said, "Don't story tell, story do."
Mm,
But every
that
brand right now is obsessed with storytelling. So what are they doing wrong? And what exactly do you mean when you say story do rather than story tell?
I do have to couch this in saying that storytelling is not a bad thing, and it's a
Yeah.
beautiful skill, and
Protect
it's a
yourself.
lot. It's a huge, like, don't get me wrong. If there wasn't storytelling, we wouldn't be human.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
think, but the fact that we can actually add story provenance to objects, that's part of that. Anyway, story doing
Mm.
is about authenticity. It's about making sure that you are taking heed of what I think is the biggest enemy to any brand, which is hypocrisy. Shooting yourself in the face because you're not who you say you are. Web 2 not only brought all that technology, it also brought purpose and mission and ethics to brands. When brands turned on the comment section, they turned on the yes, we're listening to you culture, which is all of a sudden creating influencers and analyzed hyper-targeted groups that can say, we want this. So you have companies that get inundated with it and usually do the thing they're not supposed to, which is say we're doing what you want us to do, but not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And that usually just rears its head when times are tough and it's a put up or shut up time. Nobody cares if you do what you're supposed to do when it's easy. Everybody cares what you're supposed to do when it's hard. That applies to a brand. And that's why brand therapy is taking advantage of the personification of a brand to remember the psychology is very similar to human psychology. Not because a brand is a thing, but because we personify brands. And therefore we put psychological rules into effect on brands. So when a
Mm-hmm.
brand lies to us, trust is easy to break and hard to repair.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if you story do, then you're just being you out loud.
That's great advice there as well. And you mentioned that difficult to be your own client, as in putting your own agency first. And I'll tell
Mm.
you, 85% of the conversations I've had basically are saying the same thing in their own words. So in regards to brand therapy's own growth, what is your focus then to make sure they are putting the agency first, not the last?
It's never about, for me, it's never about any specific project or company. It's about the mission.
Mm-hmm.
And are you aligning whatever you're doing with your mission? So for
Mm.
me, company betterment, the IP economy, the awareness of brands to self regulate and hold itself accountable as as an organization becoming an organism is what this is all wrapped around. So as long as I'm furthering that mission with Marked or the IP economy work or brand therapy, any of my clients, it's all the same. It's all still growth in that direction.
And what would you say is broken, or rather, not broken, but needs to improve? So you would be able to focus with what you've just said as well, and growth at the same time. Because otherwise, why would you have a business if you're not planning to have growth?
I think you just answered your own question with the right question.
Mm.
You have to ask that question of yourself. Why are you doing this? And that's how we had that conversation with the client where he's like, this feels like therapy. You have to get to the why. Go back to Simon Sinek's Golden Circle. You think that doesn't apply to you because, it's your brand that's doing the branding of others? No, that's the core of who's got to do it first. And that's another
Yeah.
excuse that I give my clients. If I couldn't do it for myself, why the hell would I do it for you? Which is it's a daring thing to say in the sense that you have to recognize how hard it is to be your own client. It's the hardest challenge you'll ever take on. You're your own worst client. But if you succeed in serving yourself well, you then have that as a tactic to talk to clients about. We used this when we were working with HP Enterprise, and they had split from HP Inc. So this is like a decade-ish ago. And the HP Enterprise is a digital transformation company. So what did they do? They digitally transformed HP into Inc. and Enterprise twice the speed of the average of the industry and said, because this is what we do. And now let us do it for you. In their birth story of their brand, or rebirth, was the example of what they would do for other customers. So when I talk about brand therapy, and I'm talking about you creating a unique niche that's not based on what you offer or what your customer is defined as, but as the product market fit that you're defined by, which is what the brand is epitomizing, then of course I'm a brand therapist, not a brand strategist. And of course, whatever it is that other clients doing, their simple example, I had a client for one session on a small dog accessory company. And she was really focused on really high quality, really specific things for the small dog life, which means the dog you're carrying around with you, it's not the dog you're walking around and have to leave at home. And so by the end of the session, we weren't selling really customized, personalized accessories. We were selling an empowerment of a relationship, the closeness of you with your dog, and how all the products were in service of a much larger mission, which is this is the kind of dog that, is a partner, is with you all the time and has a relationship that's based on this physical closeness. So that's what you're empowering and that's what you're selling. So it's the first thing it says on my website because of, things like that. It's not what you're selling, it's what the customer's actually buying. And when you can figure out what that is and make sure the customer knows you know it, that's where story doing can come to life.
And it's like I heard this somebody else say this. It's like you're not buying the product, you're buying what the product makes you feel.
I try to get a little more nuanced because people will say you're not selling the product, you're selling the benefit. And you're actually selling the benefit of the benefit. The reason I'm saying that is because you're not selling to anybody who will buy your product. You're selling to your actual target, which is a specific psychographic. And because of that specific psychographic, you're not selling the chemicals of the soap in the bottle, and you're not selling a clean house. You're selling the confidence in hosting, or you're selling the social awareness of a beautiful eco bottle so that you can show off to others that you're being eco as you clean. Whatever it is, you have to know the niche that you're selling to within your category and own that as your brand. You're not competing for total domination of the entire industry. You're competing against yourself for your own authenticity and making sure you own that and nobody else does.
Yeah. Somebody else I had a podcast with, they said wherever they go in, they identify a brand lover for that specific niche. Because once you have the brand lover, everyone else around them sort of fits into the category. So you really need to make sure you've got your avatar set on straight. Who is it that you're directly speaking to?
I did this morning. I teach at City College, and the snowstorm, I taught virtually this morning. We were going over a ski mountain and as a brand. And what we kept, the assignment that I gave them was do posters for it for New York Cityers who were thinking about going skiing from the perspective of the mountain's benefits, and then do a separate campaign from the perspective of who the customer is that you're selling to. And because I was bifurcating, I was separating the assignment into two separate things, they're much more easy to tackle. But it really was, oh, you're selling a product? Are you selling a benefit? No, you're selling the relationship of the fit between the product and the market.
Wow.
So we don't focus on product market fit as a goal. We focus on product market shift as a capability.
Wow. Jamie, let's do something fun. I've got a few rapid questions I want to ask you. I'd like you to answer in a few sentences or less. Are you up for the challenge?
We'll find out.
Okay, so tell me, most dangerous mistake brands make when they are trying to scale?
Dear Lord.
It's your opinion, so I'm not going to
No,
hold
it's not that. There's so many. I guess I have to answer this two ways. One is don't be the victim of your own success. So the point would be there, if you're at the point where you're ready to scale, that means you have product market fit and your investment is just going into being bigger at what you're already doing, just turning up the volume. There's no strategy there, it's just volume. And what can happen is, as a victim of your own success, you become ossified in what worked today.
Ooh.
And it's too easy to scale into something that then defines you. Kodak invented the digital camera and patented it and then hid it in a closet for 20 years because they were making too much money in film.
So
what do you do with that?
What should they do instead in that case?
You have to be aware of your product market shift.
Mm-hmm.
So when you lose product market fit will happen during your best years. The most CDs were sold before the year they dropped off a cliff. The most film was sold the year before the digital camera created, I think it was a 2 megapixel limit or whatever it was below 199, whatever that fulcrum point was. You have to look at adoption curves. Adoption curve being, this is the area where all the work's done and it doesn't feel like anything's moving, but as soon as you get to here, scale happens,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you have to be extra aware of that fulcrum and this fulcrum when it tapers off. Because when that happens, you better already have been working on what the next product market shift has to be.
Mm.
So think of your adoption S curve and scale as overlapping S's.
That was a really good quote out on LinkedIn with what you just said. Is something like, what's got you to this point is not going to get you to the next point or the next goal that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Yeah.
powerful. That was a really good one. Next one. One branding principle you'd burn to the ground if you could.
Yeah, selling the product.
Mhm.
I burn it to the ground.
Completely to the ground.
Completely. What the hell are you selling? If we can burn to the ground the thing that's been in the way of everybody, which is get your eyes off of the product and think about the actual thing you're selling, the benefit, if we all could just get to that level and then talk from that level, imagine the level of authenticity that just automatically resets.
So why does that principle still exist if it's so broken?
Egocentricity. One of the things that's very, very common, especially with large clients, is they, as professional as they are, as experienced as they are shocked that their customers don't want to spend time with them. Advertising is you paying permission to interrupt somebody else's life. Interrupt. They think, you lucky bastards, we spent $2 million trying to target you so you could see this story. What? That's the perspective that they legitimately are coming from. It's very insular and it's very human to think that way. And that's why product-focused marketing creates that very insular cycle, downward cycle. As soon as you're living in the product benefit, that doesn't exist without talking about the client. They don't see it from the client's perspective. They see it from their own. If you look from the customer's perspective, that's everything.
Nowadays, more and more customers can tell whether or not a business is being authentic. And this is just going back to your point. They'll see through that. And you won't have a long-term growth with that, will you? Maybe short-term, yes.
You can be evil. I mean that in the weirdest way possible, as long as you're authentic about it and talking to the right people who want you to be evil. I'm not telling any one company what to be. I'm saying be authentic about it.
Yeah, just be upfront about it. Why do you have anything to hide? No, I love that. That's great. Yeah, interesting. Something else I'm doing, and I was just thinking about
That's
that
what
now.
X is in my mind.
X, really?
When I think of Elon Musk maxis, they're that's chaos theory. That's burn it to the ground. They're all together as anarchists. Not my cup of tea, but man, is that a powerful brand?
Okay, my last rapid question to you is: what's the biggest shift in branding in the next 3 years, in your opinion?
Agentic. It's still around the fact that we're still at the very, very beginning of brands speaking for themselves and products speaking for themselves on brand. We are about to walk into that world. All this AI sitting in chat windows is being democratized into every single thing. We went through the Internet of Things, where we are adding little bits of sensors so that physical things are a part of the digital presence and awareness. All of a sudden, now that infrastructure is there, well, now AI is going to sit on top of that.
Mm.
And where are those LLMs going to be? How private is it going to be? How public is it going to be? Are the brands actually going to be in charge of their own messaging, or are they going to be using centralized platforms that approximate it for them as a service? There's so much there to go into. Just about, we're entering the conversational media era.
And how should brands prepare for this right now? What's the best thing for them to do?
It's never been a better time to be a sociologist. It's never been a better time to be a philosopher. It's never been a better time to be a conversationalist.
Anything
You want
that
to be.
AI lacks on, basically.
It's not that it lacks. It's that AIs are like brainiacs that are 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
They have unlimited potential, but they're children. They don't have the context. So you have to feed.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say infrastructurally, what I wish for to happen in the next 3 years is brand stewardship to become one of the most important jobs in a company.
Jaime, thank you so much for spending an hour with me, and I've had a great time talking to you. If people wanted to connect with you, find out more about what you're doing, where should they be looking?
You can certainly find me on LinkedIn. You can check me out on brandtherapy.coach. And if you're interested in seeing where the future is getting distributed, mrkd.dj and theIPeconomy.com.
Awesome, Jaime. And for anyone listening, if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. And we'll make sure all the links Jaime mentioned will be dropped down below so you can easily locate him. Thank you.
Thank you.